Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
All right, everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Frankly Francisco podcast. Today, my guest is a published author at 15, has several poetry collections out, and a fantasy novel. I'd like to introduce everybody to Kilayla. How are we doing today?
We're doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. So interesting. I seen you have a collection of poetry. You were first published at 15. Tell me about that. How did that come about? Where did you find that passion to be able to write? Because a lot of people can't do that. It's not an easy thing to do.
It's kind of a funny story. I started out doing forum post, play by post role playing about the characters from a kid's book I read. And I was about 12 when I started that. And it taught me how to write stories, how to get, proper grammar, everything. And from there, it just kind of developed into, I was sitting in psychology class in high school, and I was like, I have an idea for a book. And then for 6 months straight, I just worked in my book, and my grades suffered for it. But I wrote my first book.
So at what point did you know that this is something that you wanted to do for yourself? I mean, I know there was a spark at some point, but it seems like this is a full-time thing for you writing. You've put out quite a few number of books, and it seems like you just have a knack for it. Where did it shift from poetry into fantasy?
I'd always wanted to write a fantasy novel. To be quite frank, for The Buried King, I was actually in a psychiatric unit when I wrote the beginning of it. And I just read The Red Queen by Victoria Aviard, and that spiked a lot of my fantasy inspiration. Her books are phenomenal. I would definitely recommend them. They're a good read.
So when you say you were locked up for a little while, I know you're a mental health advocate, and that's a big part of my show as well. Is it's a subject we bring up a lot because there are a lot of outlets for people who suffer from mental illness. Writing is one of them. Music is another. Do you feel like when you write, it is a pathway for you? It helps ease your mind. It helps when you're in a dark place at times.
Yes, that's usually when I write my best poetry. Um, my poetry is all very focused around mental health, addiction, grief, stuff like that. Um, but when I write my fiction books, it gives me a world away from my world.
So how do these ideas come up for the fantasy books? So how do you put that together? Because fantasy is not an easy thing. There's a lot of tropes that people fall into. But for you, how do you come up with new ideas, fresh ideas for the books? When because sometimes we have to pull from inspiration. We see something that we like and we try to tweak it into our own. How do you pull your inspiration for your fantasy novels to make them stand out a little bit more?
Really, it just kind of hits me. For my upcoming book, Hidden Faces, which is due for release in 2024, it's a cathartic piece written about my time in a psychiatric unit, and that's what inspired it. But for The Buried King, I was just sitting there one day and I was like, I'm kind of I want to write something. Let's try this. And it started off one way. Then as I wrote it, it kind of diverted a different way. I don't really write with like a set plot line. I just kind of write and let it go where it goes.
Yeah, I've never been able to complete a book. I've worked on several. I have severe ADHD, so I'll have 4 or 5 chapters done, and then I'll get bored with it and leave it. Uh, it's one of my biggest issues not being able to complete an actual book. How long does it usually take you from start to finish to complete one of your books? Edit it, have somebody look it over, or do you do all the editing yourself?
So for The Prophet's Daughter, When I Am Someone Else, and The Buried King, they were all self-published, which was a challenge in its own way. I was very lucky to have a lot of support with my work. Thread and Twine was released in July of 2020, what year? The 2023. And I found a publisher for it who is actually based in Canada, which is pretty difficult because most publishers are based in America.
Mhm.
Working with her has been phenomenal because she helped me grow confidence in my poetry because I'd already had 2 published poetry books, but they didn't do very well. But finding Elizabeth was great. She's been a phenomenal person to work with, and
So
it's definitely helped give me some inspiration.
So have you circled back now since you're writing more and you're publishing more? Have you circled back to those original books that did not do well and republished them again? Or have you been promoting those books to see if the sales have gone higher from when you first started to where you are now?
I took down The Prophet's Daughter because I feel it's not my best work. I don't want everyone to read it and think that that's my best. I was 15 when I wrote it, so When I Am Someone Else is still available. I published that one in 2019. I believe I would have been about 22 at that time.
Mhm.
And then I also wrote Scarlet Clock, which was published by a publisher in the States, and that's some of my best work. The publisher priced it a bit high, but the book itself I find was pretty good. But I do keep the Buried King. I do try to promote that as much as possible because it is a lead in to my upcoming book, Shadow Dancer.
So the books are connected. So you only have one fantasy novel at the moment. How many books of poetry do you have out in total right now?
3.
You have 3. And then the fantasy novel is just one. And then with the new book coming out, it's a direct connection to the Buried King, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So for that, how many books do you think of this fantasy writing you're going to do? How do you see yourself? You know, you have people who write fantasy and it can be 5, 7, 8, novels. Or do you have a specific number of books that you want to write for this? Or are you just going to keep writing until, you figured you had enough of the characters?
Just gonna keep writing until I figure that I'm done with the world.
Nice. Now, as far as your scheduling for books, have you gone on tour yet? Have you done readings? Has there been anything where you've been able to promote yourself in person and read at some of these like a Barnes and Noble or a library or something like that to read your book to promote yourself more?
I did when I was younger do a reading with The Prophet's Daughter at Indigo.
Mhm.
Back when it was called Chapters, and it was an amazing experience. I was going to do one with The Buried King as well, but unfortunately, I've been in a bit of financial crisis, so I wasn't able to afford to buy the books that I would have to bring to the signing.
Yeah.
I'm planning on doing some more podcasts and interviews and stuff like that to kind of broaden my audience. And
I mean, it's always good to have, different resources to get yourself out there to promote your book. Going on podcasts is a good way of doing that. Promoting it on your social media is another way. I mean, you're proud of this book. You're getting ready to introduce another book, another chapter in the book. And it can be taxing sometimes when you're an artist. You're an artist. It's basically what you are. You're a writer, but you're an artist because what you write comes from you. Do you find that sometimes writer block comes into play? Have you ever had that issue? Let's say with the Barry King, did you get to a point where you just had a writer's block? You were a couple chapters in and you just couldn't come up with anything?
solidly, yes. With The Buried King, there was about a 1 month period where every time I picked it up, I just couldn't figure out how to go from there. It took a lot of help from my mom, actually. My mom helped me persevere through the writer's block and write a better book than what I was writing. When I was writing Shadow Dancer, there was one section where for 2 weeks straight I stared at the same pages and I just could not get past it. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I did it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the struggle is real. You have like Stephen King, it took him 10 years to write Under the Dome. So it tends to happen sometimes. Some of our greatest work comes when it's unexpected. And I think writing is cathartic for everyone. Even when you're depressed, sometimes people get their best work when they're depressed. Or, when they find something that reminds them of something, they have to write it down. Like I said, some people have a gift for this. My gift is being able to speak to people. Your gift is being able to write. It's finding that balance, I think, because people like myself, we're creative, but we create in a different way. You are very creative because you put pen to paper. It's something that's not easy for a lot of people. They get stuck, or their thoughts, get jumbled up. And I see things in movie form, so I don't see things in written form. So if I'm thinking of a book, thinking about writing a book, I'm thinking as if I see it on the screen. Is that how you see things, or you see things as it as in writing form?
I think that's a good actually a really good way to put it. It does feel to me like watching a movie as I write what I'm writing.
So for me, that's the biggest thing for me. Everything that I see that I run and write down, I visualize it. And I think that has a lot to do with the ADHD that I have as well. It makes me, I see everything like 3D. It has to be, I have to visualize it. I have to see it in my head as a movie, how it's going to play out. I'll even put, actors that I want in those specific roles to see how it's going to work. Um, but for you, when you're trying to get yourself in the mood to write, do you prefer being in a happier mood, or do you prefer being in a somber mood to get yourself motivated to work?
Somber,
Really?
definitely. Yeah. I find when I'm a little down and down in the dumps, I find I my best poetry happens that way. When it comes to my fiction books, though, I do prefer to be in a calmer range,
Mhm.
like not too overwhelmed with happiness or too overwhelmed with sadness, just kind of in that mediocre range.
It's amazing how we have to go to a place that we normally don't want to go to be super creative sometimes. Um, but how do you get out of it? So you're writing, right? You're in that place, you're in a somber mood, and you're starting to write pen to paper, and you're going page after page after page, but you're so deep into it. How do you pull yourself out of that? Because sometimes it can lead you down a rabbit hole to be even more depressed than what you started. So how do you pull yourself out of that after you're done expressing yourself and getting all that on paper?
I usually share my work with my friends to get their advice and talk to them. They offer support, and my mom is a big supporter who, when I'm upset, I can send her some poems and it helps her understand how I'm feeling, and then we work together on how to kind of pull myself out of that rut.
Yeah, having a support system is always the best thing, because sometimes people suffer in silence, and it can be a daunting task, especially folks that have mental health issues. Is we get into a place where we can't pull ourselves out when we get into that dark place. But having friends and family and a support system that there is always a good thing. And I think where the headspace that you're in right now with the support you have, I think you can continue to keep doing what you're doing, and keep growing your fantasy novels. Now, with your novels, is that geared towards younger audience? We're talking teens to like 20s, or older audience in like 30s, 40s. Where is the age group within the books that you're writing?
Um, I definitely say the poetry books are geared more towards any age,
Mhm.
but are very common struggles for people who are my age. I'm 26. But then my fiction books, they're more geared towards young adults or late teenagers.
Got you. So do you at some point want to get these books to the point where, somebody down the road will want to, take one of these books and buy the rights and get a movie made for them?
That's the dream. That
I
is
think,
definitely the dream.
you know what? If the books blow up, which I'm hoping they do for you, and you have a good story, it's only a matter of time. I mean, there's been a lot of people that had the rights brought from them from books, but the movies never get made, but they still get paid because of the rights that were brought from them. So, I mean, I see you as someone who's determined. Come on, you had your first book published at 15, and you've been doing it ever since, and you're 26 now. People can't knock that. It's a great accomplishment, doing that at an early age, and you did it on your own. So now you have a publisher, but on your early books, you said it was a struggle. So did you have to go? Was there a system there for you to do the self-publishing? Would you still do self-publishing now if you didn't have, somebody there to help back you up to doing what you're doing now?
I'd say if I hadn't been lucky, and I will say lucky enough to get a publisher, I would continue self-publishing. but I have a publisher now, and it's my dream, and I can't wait to see my books on physical paper from these publishers. They're they've been wonderful to work with. They've been very patient with me, and because when I wrote Shadow Dancer, I sent it to them to the publisher when I only had 2,000 words written, and within those 2,000 words, they decided to publish me. And that was when I decided I don't think I'll self-publish again, because if I can get a publisher, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, but sometimes it's a struggle, like you said, when you're first getting off the ground and the books are not selling like hotcakes like you would like them to. It's just getting yourself out there and getting your book known to a bigger audience. So you continue to keep doing podcasts, and have you done other things besides pack? Have you tried to book a spot on somebody's YouTube page, or someone on radio? Are you planning to work on stuff like that as well?
I have been on the radio based in by the UK.
Nice.
Um, I will be on an upcoming YouTube channel, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head right now. I've done local newspapers and interviews and stuff like that. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You're getting yourself out there, getting that book, more seen than it is. And where do you sell the book at? Is it sold on Amazon? Is it on Kindle? Where can people actually find the book?
Amazon. I haven't figured out how to get them onto Barnes and Noble and stuff yet.
Well, I think your publisher will try to help you out with that one to try to get the book sold at a bigger publication. Now with Shadow Dancer, is this follow up you feel your best work that you've done?
I personally think it's some of the best work I've done. My friend, she would help me write it. She'd read it, tell me if it made sense. And she said every time I sent it to her, she's like, I need you to write more. I need to know more about the story. And my mom said that my mom gives me a cruel, honest advice kind of thing. Not cruel. I don't know the word I'm looking for. But she gives me honest advice saying what you've written here is really good. What you wrote there, not so much. But it's just, I'm really proud of this project, and I really hope it rings true with some people.
Constructive criticism is always a good thing. It depends on how you take it. And moms can be very blunt in their critique of how they do things. It's like me when I first started podcasting. My mom used to listen to the episodes, and she used to tell me, "Hey, this is really good and good conversation you're having, but you need to work on this." And we brush it under the table sometimes about our moms, but she's right. Moms are usually right in their critique and what they're saying, and they try to make things better for us in the long run. So I'm glad you have your mom there to help you and to keep you grounded and focused on what you're doing, because some people don't like to take the constructive criticism. Has the publishing company come back the same way, then told you, this maybe need to do this or that? Have you given any pushback on any of the constructive criticism they've given you?
I actually just last night received the first draft edits for Shadow Dancer.
Mm-hmm.
And there were just a couple of comments about what I needed to fix, and grammar issues and stuff like that. But it wasn't like a major upheaval of the book, so I'm hoping that's a good thing.
That's great. I mean, if it's not that much, that means you're on the right track, and they really like what you're doing. Now, as far as you writing, let me ask you a question. Have you utilized how do you feel about AI? How do you feel about people writing books now through AI and not writing the traditional way anymore, where they're typing it up themselves, but they're using AI to tell their story?
Um, I don't like the idea. I mean, I think AI has its place. It's done some cool art for me for my characters
Mm-hmm.
for me to use for publication, like for advertising. But at the same time, when you're writing a book with AI, it just doesn't feel as genuine, and you don't get that personality like that, because every writer has their own personality that they write through their books, and AI just doesn't have that. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like AI is taking over everything now. There's people are writing, whole songs are being written now People are writing screenplays through AI. I think AI takes away from some of the creativity of a person like yourself who's putting in the hours and the time of getting things done. People are writing whole books in 20 minutes and selling them online, thinking that they've, created something. They haven't. A computer generated that. It didn't come from you. It didn't come from the heart. And, bits and pieces of yourself goes into your writing, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes.
So a piece of you is in that book, a piece of who you are is in that book. And I can understand the passion behind it because, it's part of you. It's something that drove you, something in your mind drove you to write these words on the page. And, when people use AI to generate things like that to write books, I think it takes away from an artist. And you're an artisan when it comes to writing, right? You're the person who's putting the work behind what you're doing and the passion. And I think AI takes away from that. I think it takes away from the genuine emotion that we see on a page. You know, you can see a person's whole life on pages sometimes. They put a lot of themselves in their books. A lot of their own personal situations are written on these pages, but as another character. Do you feel you've done that as well with your books?
With my upcoming book, Hidden Faces, it is actually a based on complete personal experiences. It's about, I haven't decided on the character's name, but basically it's based about my time in a child and adolescent unit for psychiatry when I was 17, and it's built to kind of show mental health and uh, recovery, and it's a big part of who I am as a person
Mhm.
and my experiences. So you can't get that deep personal edge that you would get with AI. You just can't get it.
Now, are you when you say are you you're a mental health advocate as well? Have you reached out? Have have people come to you for help? Have you talked to people? I mean, because your poems are part of who you are, and it expresses the issues that you've had with mental health. Has anybody come to you for advice? Have anybody come for you for help? Based on of what you've written.
No.
So there is at some point someone may come to you and say, "Hey, the words that you've written on this page has helped me."
Oh, I
Um,
have heard that. Yes.
right? Yeah, that's what I mean. With somebody coming to you saying, "Hey, your words have helped me. Your words have helped me get through this." That's what I meant when they say they've come to you and talk
Yep.
to you. So you've had that already.
Yes.
Okay. So you've helped somebody. That's I mean, that's the best thing you can do. Even if it's one person, you've created a safe space for somebody to be able to express themselves to you because of your writing. And that's something you should be proud of. Um, now let me know where people can find you and where you said they can find the book online. They can find it on, you said Amazon.
Yeah.
Where can they find you on social media?
Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I don't really use Twitter or X or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
Um, my TikTok and Instagram are both my first name, Kilayla, and then it's an X or an XO. Okay, they have both.
Okay. Do you post a lot on social media? Do you interact a lot with the people that follow you and who you follow?
I don't really have a big following. I post a lot on my TikTok,
Mhm.
but I've only ever reached about 4,000 views on one promoted post. But I do read a lot of my poetry on TikTok.
Yeah, you know what?
Instagram, not so much.
With TikTok, what's crazy about TikTok is I can post a video and it'll stop at like 250 people, right? But if I promote it, it'll reach out to another 2 or 3 thousand people. But then after the promotion's done, it's dead. It won't go any
Yep.
further. And that's one of the things I don't really like about TikTok is they don't push you as hard as you want. Because some of these numbers, I think people inflate on TikTok, on what their numbers are because they're promoting it. And don't get me wrong, it's all about money. It's pay to play. We want to get out there, but when you have something genuine like you have, and you have a message behind what you're doing, the algorithm should be able to push that out. Hashtags. Do you tend to use certain hashtags when you're promoting your stuff on TikTok?
Yeah.
Have you
I
found?
use like I use like Explorer on Instagram because that's big. That gets you on the Explore page.
Mhm.
On TikTok I use Book Talk because that's a big one.
And are those hashtags or is that like a
Hashtags.
oh, okay. And that'll get you more exposure out there for the book.
Hopefully,
No, you got to
that
stay
is the goal.
positive. Got to stay positive. Can't
That
stay
is the
hopefully.
goal.
Just say it's gonna happen for you. You gotta talk it into existence. You know, the more positive we are, the better chances of things happening for us. And I think your creativity is gonna take you a long way if you just keep showing the passion that you're showing. I want to thank you for coming on the show. You have a passion for what you do. I know you pour yourself into your work, and just at some point, don't let it consume you because sometimes, people they go into dark places when they write and they can't find their way out. But you have such a good support system. I see a bright future ahead of you with these books, and hopefully, things start to pick up for you where you're able to tour and able to read, at Barnes and Nobles and have book signings. And that's the goal. That's what I want for everybody is to be successful, and I want that for you as well. So I'm gonna leave you with what I leave everybody with. If you found your purpose, live it. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Have a good night, everybody.
You take care.